So, can you hear me, Ernest?
I can. You have about 39 folks in the room so far.
Okay,
I know
so
we have 50 registered, so
we'll wait just a couple more minutes so we have enough time for questions. I can't unfortunately see folks, and I can't see the questions. But you can see the PowerPoint
yes, sir.
and you can see the questions.
Yes, I'll be able to see that. Yeah.
All right. I apologize. I'm gonna probably have to rely on you a bit more.
Not a problem. We can do it.
All right. And then just let me know when we get a couple more folks and I'll start this up.
We are at 40 right now, and we have 50 registered. So,
All right. Well, I think in the interest of time, everyone, I'm just going to get started and then people will jump on board. First of all, thank you all for being here and participating in this. My name is Carl Kruger. I think I've probably interacted with some of you before. I'm a senior policy director here at the coordinating board, and I am being assisted very well by Ernest Jaquez, our program director here with the coordinating board. And yeah, once again, thank you for being here. He's going to be providing a lot of technical support. So I'm just going to hit a few housekeeping items first, which is that, as you can probably already tell, you will not be able to speak during the webinar. That's just me and Ernest. So if you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A feature. This says both Ernest and I will monitor, but it's not showing up on my screen, unfortunately. So Ernest will be monitoring the questions. He will make sure to alert me if there's something that I need to answer right away. We're going to do our best to address all the inquiries that you have. We will have some time at the end, I hope a lot of time, for an extended Q&A period. If during the course of the regular questions, though, if I'm unable to actually answer your question, I was hoping to have someone from our general counsel office and our finance division here also participating in the webinar, but no one could make this time. So it's just me. So if there's a question that I do not know an answer to, I will find that answer and I will get back to you in a timely fashion. My goal is, 24 to 48 hours if possible. And I'll also add that at the end of this presentation, my email address will be displayed on the screen if you don't already have it. Most of you probably do. So if there's anything that you forgot about or weren't able to get to, please feel free to send any additional questions or concerns directly to me at my email address. It's carl.kruger@texas.highered.gov. I will also just say this one last thing. This webinar is being recorded, just so you all know, and that's so that it can be shared with participants who want to look at it and also be made available to those who could not be with us today. The Q&A transcript will also be saved. So again, any questions that are in there that we don't get to today or I am unable to answer, I'll know what they are and I will get back to you with an answer via email for sure. Are there any questions that I need to, anything right now, Ernest, that I should?
no, nothing yet. No questions yet. So we're good to go.
I'm going to dive in. I'm just going to do this quickly. Can you see this?
Yes, your screen share is on.
I'm turning Teams off. Anyway, I did want to quickly go through the purpose. If you are participating in this webinar, your project already meets this criteria. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but I just wanted to sort of go over it one more time. We had a very competitive selection process for this particular GEER 2 funding. Anybody who's participating in this call, all of the institutions that we selected for funding scored highly according to our evaluation team. But, again, just to reiterate, this is really to support nursing programs that are seeking to innovate or amplify efforts to address shortages in the state's nursing pipeline. And, when we say that, we're talking specifically faculty, simulation coordinators, and all this was exacerbated by pandemic. And as you all know, the competition took place in late 2022. It's now March of 2023. So this will be my first apology yet again that this process has taken so long. But we are doing our best and, hopefully we'll be able to get through it. Again, you were chosen because your proposals were the most innovative and seem to have the greatest chance of success at, alleviating the nursing shortage in the state, which does currently inhibit our, ability to educate more nurses in the state. You're probably already familiar with the project goals, but, I also do just want to stress that your project goals must align with the overall goals of the RFA. I'll probably say this a few times, that RFA really is the primary guiding document of this grant. So make sure you're always, you've got that handy as we move through the next few months. Activities and outcomes, well-defined, realistic, achievable. I know that we are on a very tight timeline now. From what I know of your proposals and projects, I do think they're still achievable. And again, we are hoping that at the end of this, there is an ability to sustain an increase in nursing faculty after the grant period ends. Like what you're doing maybe can be replicated at other sites and things like that. And just before I dive into the reporting and guidelines and things like that, are there any questions that I need to address before?
No questions so far.
All right. So this is probably what you're going to be most interested in. I'm going to go over the reporting. First thing tomorrow morning, all of you will receive a link to the survey reporting tool that we are using. Each institution has their own unique Qualtrics survey link. And I will be emailing that to all of you individually. So you'll get the reporting link. You will also get hard copies of everything, including the instructions, the project timeline form, and all of that. I will not be sending the budget forms until after the interim report for anybody that wants to know about that. This is really just sort of about the one that's coming up, like literally in 10 days. The interim progress reports are due on April 1st. And I know, again, that is literally right around the corner. So again, my apologies to everyone for the length of this process, but I did want to briefly give, an overview of the full timeline. Like I said, your first project report is due April 1st. And then we staggered the expenditure reports. So you'll have the first one of those due in May, and I will again send those forms out with instructions after the interim report comes in. Your second and final project report is due at the end of July. And then that's followed by, and you know what, this is wrong. So just ignore that 10/31. In the materials you get tomorrow, it's 8/31, August 31st is when the grant comes to an end. That's the second interim expenditure report. And then a final financial report is due on September 30th. And then, does anybody have questions about the overall timeline? Still good?
Still good, no questions.
All right. So like I said, you're going to receive your initial progress reporting forms tomorrow. I will email them to you. You will submit your interim and final reports via a Qualtrics survey. But this slide really just provides an overview of the questions that you're going to be asked to answer, trying to keep it as basic as possible, knowing the tight timeline. So, you know, basically you'll just be answering what are the main project activities, barriers, milestones, if you're on track, what strategies can you deploy to address anything that you see as a challenge or a barrier. You know, we fully understand you might not have very much to report on by April 1st, and that is okay. Just be sure to tell us what you can, even if it's just, you know, I filled out a few forms. Just do the best you can with that. You can only report on, you know, what you've done, and that's totally fine. Again, the most important thing is just making sure that you submit your report and your answers by April 1st. That's really mainly because of these really stringent federal reporting guidelines. And I'll repeat this again a little bit later, but submission of this report by April 1st, continued funding is contingent upon that submission. So this just gives you a preview. You'll get to see the whole thing tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning.
Carl, I do have a question regarding the timeline. Question states, due to the lateness of the notification and receipt of funds, can this timeline be extended?
So unfortunately, I was going to address this later. Unfortunately, because of the federal guidelines that govern this grant, there is no carryover period. There is no extension. Everything comes to a hard stop on August 31st. So I understand that the timeline is extra tight, but unfortunately, because this is a federal GEER grant, we just can't offer any kind of extension or carryover period. So I apologize for that, but just keep that in mind that everything has to be done by August 31st. Is there anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay. I'll just go over this quickly. After you report on your program progress, you might very well want to update your project timeline, and that's fine. To do so, you would fill out this form, which is going to be attached to your Qualtrics survey. You'll actually have a document that you'll be emailed. You can also access it through the Qualtrics survey, and you just fill it out, just, the activity, duration, completion date. If dates are changing, activities are changing, I wouldn't suggest, and I will get into this later as well, making big changes to your activities, but we understand that you might want to update your project timeline, which you'll just do that and submit that to me again by April 1st, and then I'll be able to start reviewing them. Once I do look through any proposed changes to your project timeline, I will either approve them in writing, like I'll send you an email saying approved, or I will schedule a meeting, a phone call, and we can have a more in-depth discussion and find solutions to some of the issues that you might be having.
Question, Carl.
Yes.
Question is, since this is a federal grant, are time and effort reports required?
They are not. You don't need to worry about that. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. So just to wrap up the reporting piece of this, we do strongly suggest that, the person in charge of completing the reporting work, obviously work with your institution's primary contact, institutional research team, chief reporting official, finance, whoever you need to bring in to help complete your report. We, obviously encourage you, strongly suggest, actually is what I have written here, to do that. As I said, this one might not have much to report, but just, make sure that anybody who has input, appropriate, valid input into this report is able to contribute to it. You will again complete and submit both the interim and then later on the final report forms to us at the coordinating board via the Qualtrics survey by the due date. I will say again, continued funding is contingent upon the submission of these reports. So it's very important to get them in. I think that, the final report is going to have a lot more content probably, but, I have talked to some of you already over the phone or Teams or something like that. And some people already have a lot to report. Others you might not. Again, that's fine. And like I said before, because of the federal guidelines, there is no carryover of funds or a grant extension period. All grant activities come to a hard stop on August 31st. Anything else before I get into just some general guidelines?
No new questions, no.
Right. So just, a few basic guidelines to go over. Year 2 grantees, obviously understand the specific program regulations that identify allowable and unallowable activities and expenditures. Like I said, the RFA, that's your primary guiding document. The RFA and the grant agreement. If you really want to get into the weeds, you're more than welcome to, and I will send these links to you. I realize you can't get to them, but there is a GEER section on the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education page. That's the Federal Office of Elementary and Secondary Education. And then I think even more useful really is the Code of Federal Regulations, particularly these sections. So when I send your reporting materials out, I'll include links to both of those. If you really want to get into the weeds, they can actually be helpful. And then, just as general guidelines, which are probably common sense, like just make sure that you are documenting your progress and your use of funding. That's what the reporting is, both the progress and the expenditure reporting, and make sure that you maintain all of your records. We will be doing the same thing on our end, by the way. I mean, we're, obviously documenting progress, how things are being used. We are maintaining records, everything, communication, reporting, everything. And I would highly advise that you do the same thing on your end, because my experience with federal grants is that they are very strict about this. You want to maintain your records. I think that I used to know this, but I think that if it's possible, you want to maintain any records related to this particular funding for a period of 3 years. Any questions about that?
No questions.
Okay. So lastly, I'll just touch on a few more guidelines, specifically as they relate to change requests and monitoring. Again, goes without saying, follow and monitor your approved grant budget and your project activities. I will tell you that we will be monitoring your progress internally. We will contact you if we happen to see any red flags. And quite often a red flag can, start waving if you do not seek prior approval for primarily these following changes. Those budget, scope of work, and changes in personnel. If there are budget changes in any category, up to 25%, you don't need to ask our permission for that or alert us to that. Anything over 25%, we need to know about that ASAP. Obviously, changing the scope or the objective of the grant, you would want to tell us about that ASAP. I would not recommend doing that. And then if there are changes in personnel, which can happen, you just need to let us know about that ASAP as well. For the most part, as long as you get us, as long as you notify us here at the coordinating board, prior approval shouldn't be a problem. The big thing would be if you're changing the scope of your project so that it doesn't match what was in your proposal that was awarded. Budget changes over 25%. And even within that 25%, again, there's just certain things that are never going to be allowable, like related to travel, related to, food, alcohol, paying stipends and things like that. I think I've talked with some of you about that ahead of time. But again, if you have questions, let me know now or later. The thing about change requests is that depending on what they are, they may result in, audit findings, additional monitoring requirements, and modifications to the grant award. Modifications means usually a reduction in funding. I'll just be honest and tell you that GEER funding can be an audit magnet. So just, do try to make sure that you're following the federal guidelines. And again, if you have any questions about activities or changes you are considering, ask me, let me know ahead of time, and I'm sure that we'll be able to work it out. But sure as you really don't want to get a federal audit. Nobody wants to get a federal audit. So that's really all I wanted to go over today to make you aware of, again, the basic reporting structure, some of those guidelines, some of our suggestions, some of the, actions or activities that can, raise a red flag, increase monitoring, all that. It's like on our end, we have, all these different monitoring reporting forms that you don't need to worry about, only we do. But, it is information that goes to the Department of Education. And so, we can open it up for questions now. Hopefully we have enough time for everybody. We have a half hour.
So question, Carl, will funds for this award be sent through USAS? If so, we will provide with a new RFI, or will we be provided with a new RFI? Not sure what that is, but it's probably a finance question.
a new RFI.
Correct.
RFA. So the way that you receive these funds is as a state appropriation, like through your RTA. I know that some of you have asked, will it be going to a bank account? It goes to you as a state appropriation. And it's one of the main reasons I wanted to have a finance person here. I apologize. I don't know what RFI is. If that can be clarified, then I will make sure to get that answer. You know, in the tracking system that we're using in our department, invoices say paid, but our finance department, it goes through a whole other process. I know that some funds have been released and some funds have yet to be released. You are allowed to continue as soon as your NOGA is executed, grant activities could commence, but I understand that, if you have the money, like for salaries and so forth, that could be an issue, but I can find out from finance and contracts here at the coordinating board specific answers to those questions. So I'm not sure if that helped or answered your question at all, but let me know.
I think there's a clarification. It says it's the manner in which the funds are deposited and it's specific to USAS.
Okay.
Another question. We would like to use the awarded grant funds allocated to attend a conference that occurred before the grant funds were available for a different purpose. Do we email you to request to redistribute the conference funds to another purpose?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, if there was anything that you had budgeted that took place before your NOGA was executed and you want to reallocate that money, that's perfectly fine. But yes, send me the revision, the budget revision, how those funds are going to be reallocated, just to make sure that, you're in compliance. But yeah, anything that you were planning on spending before that NOGA was executed, that obviously you can't pay for now, because that would be against the rules. Yes, notify me, and it should be fine, provided it doesn't fall into an unallowable cost category. And, again, if it is under 25%, you technically don't need to notify me, but I think it would be helpful and useful if you did, no matter what, just so we have a record of it.
Okay, two more questions. And they kind of go together. So how do we credit the funding on products like videos? I assume we can brand our own institution as well on these projects, like you would for a research grant.
Yes. Yes.
So
and
question,
I think, yeah. And so, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ernest.
Yeah, so how do they credit funding on products like videos?
So I've actually been trying to get a firm official answer for this. And I'm still waiting on that, but I'll bug them again and stress the urgency of this. Branding, yes, you are allowed to, obviously include your institution. In previous federal grants that I have worked on, it's usually the U.S. Department of Education. You need to credit them. Since that's where the funding is coming from, I'm not sure if you also need to credit the governor's office, since they're kind of the pass-through for the GEER funds, but I will find out. But what I will tell you, and then I will get the firm official answer, I promise, is that it will either be your institution plus the U.S. Department of Education, using GEER funding provided by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. So it's a lot, but there'd be three. There would be three entities that you would that you would have to use for any kind of branding in video or, you know, printed materials and things like that. But I mean, the thing is that I just want to be sure that we're using the right language. I know what I've used in the past, but I depending on what governor's office requires and the feds require, I'll make sure that you all have a copy of what that official language is supposed to be.
Carl, are you able to see the Q&A now? We have a couple come in, so I don't know how you want to start
Yeah.
with it.
I got it. Thanks, Ernest. So, why does that go away? When was the original start date of the grant? Yeah, I mean, so the technically the start date of your grant is the day the NOGA was executed. So the day you got an email from me saying, here's your fully executed NOGA, that's the official start date. The original start date of the grant was January 2023. And again, I apologize, it's taken that long. Let's see, if we are reallocating effort and salary to add an additional person or additional effort person to meet approval. If it doesn't change the overall budget, really, I'm going to say that. Just if you're adding personnel or adding, you know, additional time and effort for persons already included in your budget, just send that to me so that I can look at it and make sure that it's not going to raise a red flag. I think it'll be fine, but just be on the safe side. And so we have everything documented and, you know, stored safely away. Send that to me, but I don't see that being an issue at all. And then for the one about a stipend and a salary, so a salary, if you're using grant funding to cover part of a salary for someone who works at your institution, that is an allowable cost. If you were going to offer a stipend, you know, for folks to come and like attend a conference or a symposium or a workshop, things like that, that's not allowed. Generally, what the federal government is considering to be a stipend is a payment that is going to somebody outside of your institution. So they're very strict about not offering what they call incentive payments. And, you know, stipends, frankly, are a slippery slope. There are some, you know, as you already know, grant budgets that were reduced because there were stipends in there that just weren't allowable. If you're thinking about paying a stipend to someone outside of your institution, like, for example, you know, travel, if they're going to do some work, then I would make sure that we understand it and make sure that it is an allowable cost. The stipend is it's a gray area, but it's also something that they are very they're just very strict about it. Does that answer the question well enough? Gail, I assume. Okay. Yes, I will include the primary faculty contact in all correspondence. Does everyone want the primary faculty contact included when I send information out? So here's what I'll do. I'll just make sure that I include our primary contact and the primary faculty contact for everyone. Let's see, does this include speaker fees to pay someone who's providing a service? Is that something that was included already? Was that something that was included in your budget already? Then that should be fine. If we approved it, it's fine.
Carl, I have another question or comment that came in through chat.
Yeah.
We tried to use the salary saving option to buy out faculty time. Due to the timeline, their work time is committed, so we can't buy it out. We were going to pay their summer stipend with this money. They are not required to work in the summer. They are all internal employees. Yes, double exclamation point.
Can you read that one more time?
Yes, I'm not sure if it was a question. I think it's a comment. So it says the institution tried to use the salary saving option to buy out faculty time. Due to the timeline, the work time is committed, so we can't buy it out. We're going to pay their summer stipends with this money. They are not required to work in the summer. They are all internal employees. Yes, I think it was more so of a comment, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's if they're institutional employees, that should be an allowable cost, but I will flag that. Well, summer salary. Okay, I see. That should be allowable. I will make 100% sure though, because it's still the same. It's still a salary, whether it's summer. It's still part of your salary, and salary for institutional employees who are participating in grant activities, that's an allowable cost. But again, I will make 100% sure that that is the case. And then is there anybody's grant money skips? No, I'm sorry. Scholarships are not an allowable cost. Because that would be considered financial aid, and no financial aid at all is allowed under the guidelines of this grant. So we still have 17 minutes. If anybody has more questions that I can hopefully answer, I have noted the ones that I will get you, like the finance questions. I'll find those out. I will confirm that what I said about the salaries, like summer salaries, for example, that's correct. 99% sure that it is, but just to be on the safe side. And again, anything related to financial aid, scholarship, stipends, that's definitely not allowed. Yes. So all of this I'll send to webinar participants. Yes. Do we have all that information, right, Ernest?
Yes, we have the registration for all participants.
Okay, so anyone who has registered for this, yes, I will send you the information. By information, do you mean like the webinar recording, the slides, things like that? Or is that okay? Yes, I will, yeah. So I will send all participants a copy of the slides. And is that and the recording? Is that all you need regarding that? Okay, cool. Let's see. Yeah, you should be able to manage your budget and salary similar to a federal NIH grant. You should, yes, you should be. But the GEER funding, it does have a few quirks, I guess I'll call it, and additional restrictions. So let me also just make a point of that and confirm that yes, I mean, I don't see why it would be different from a federal NIH grant. But again, GEER funding has a few quirks. So I'm just going to make sure, but again, 99% sure that the answer to that is yes. Okay. Oh, sorry. Buyout salary. Yes, I will get confirmation. Just don't call it a stipend. You can think of like put it under the make sure it's just under the salary category and don't use the word stipend. Even though I know what you mean, just don't say stipend, just say buyout salary or summer salary, whatever, things like that. That should be allowable, fine. I will check with general counsel to make sure, but yeah. All right. Don't see any other open questions. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, I know that your time is valuable, and I thank all of you for taking the time to participate in this. I hope it was helpful. If there's something you didn't think to ask, please email me and I will get you an answer. For those questions that either need a full answer or a confirmation, I will get that information to you. Like I said, I'm hoping within the next 24 to 48 hours, as soon as I can. And yeah, thank you for all your time. And also, if there's anything else related to this, related to your grant, now that we're getting rolling, reporting, anything, please feel free to email me, call me. And if we need to set up a meeting or a phone call, we can do that. And so with that, I guess I'll say thank all of you one more time. And thank you to Ernest for helping to moderate this and do all the technical aspects that I didn't get. So thank you, Ernest. And I'll be, in touch with you all very soon. And remember, tomorrow morning, make sure you just look for that reporting link. Okay. With that, I will say goodbye for now. And thanks again for all your patience. We really do appreciate it. Once we get past this first report, I'm hoping everything will be smooth sailing, but we will work together to make sure that, your projects are as successful as they can possibly be, because the work that you're doing is vitally important for the entire state. So thanks again. And, you'll be hearing from me real soon.